Today we're talking about Metroid again, a series that once went 14 years without a proper mainline entry to the series, in the case that we aren't counting these two, which has now been revived with the release of Metroid Dread and the soon-to-release Metroid Prime 4. Prime 4 is exciting for many reasons, but I would say the piece that is exciting me the most about this game is this guy. Many of you watching may not know who this guy is, or maybe many of you do, but there's a lot more to him than having a ship that shows up in the 100% ending of Metroid Prime 3. Today, we're going to be looking back at a Metroid Prime game that he was actually an active part of, a game that was a pretty big part of my teenage years as well for one very specific reason we'll talk about later in this video. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Metroid Prime Hunters. Now let's rip the bandage off right away. This game came out on the DS, and by taking a good look at the game, hell, even a glance would do, it doesn't look that pretty. So for the sake of this video, let's just smooth out all the edges here. That looks much better. This game is a treat, and for what it's worth, I don't think they could have done any better making a Metroid Prime game on this system. You look around by dragging your stylus on the touchscreen, and all of the buttons you can reach with the hand actually holding your DS complete all of your other actions, like running, jumping, and shooting. Options like the morph ball or switching to missiles or any other weapons that you'll be finding are all found on buttons on your touchscreen, but nicely enough, these will only activate with a single press. If you drag your stylus over them while looking around, you won't be accidentally going into morph ball or anything like that. Control-wise, I think this game feels amazing to play. As good as a first-person shooter/platformer on the DS could possibly be, in my opinion. As far as the game that surrounds this control scheme though, well, the story mode is a little rough for a couple of different reasons. Firstly, as they probably wouldn't have been able to give us one huge connected world on the DS, they separated this game into 4 different planets. Basically, you'll be flying your ship to one of these planets, searching the world for 3 keys that will activate a portal, taking the portal to a boss fight which will then reward you with one of the 8 octoliths you're gonna need to finish the game. This process is exactly the same on every planet, but each one of them maps out quite differently from the rest, keeping this whole experience very, very fresh. At least, that's what I would be saying if there were only 4 octoliths to collect. Because there are 8 to collect and we have 4 planets to search, we will be returning to every planet a second time in order to find 3 keys, go through the portal to the boss, and collect another octolith. This isn't really that bad, as in classic Metroidvania fashion, we'll be using weapons and upgrades we've collected on other planets to open doors to areas that we never visited, but they're still structured pretty similarly to the rest of the planet you're on, making it feel a little stale after about the halfway point of the game. It's not a terrible way to have made this game play out, but I do feel like this idea wasn't exactly executed perfectly. I will give it this though. After a while of playing on these planets more than one time, you do get very familiar with the layout of each one of them, making the exploration actually quite fun. Typically, on your first return to a planet you've previously cleared, you'll probably remember exactly where you need to go in order to open a door that you used to have no access to, because the worlds really aren't that crazy big. There was usually one door or colored barrier that I had in mind to check out first thing when I came back to all these places, and that did make things feel a little better than just exploring areas I've already been to all over again. Oh, and by the way, getting to know your way around each of these planets is going to be in your best interest for another reason, because each time you take out one of these bosses and collect their octolith, you're greeted with an escape sequence. I know Metroid games are famed for their end-of-game escape sequences, but come on guys. 8 escape sequences for 8 octoliths is just a few too many. The thing is, these planets clearly don't explode or anything as we come back to revisit each one of them later on, so why are we even in a rush to get out of here? It just seems a little bit forced, and I could have done with, I don't know, maybe 7 fewer of these? Funny enough though, there are 2 escape sequences for every planet in this game, but no escape sequence after beating the final boss. It's just kind of silly and not very typical for a Metroid game. Let's rewind real quick to before the escape sequences though. What are the octolith bosses like? There are 8 of them, so there's probably a pretty good amount of variety, right? No, not really. Weirdly enough, we have 2 styles of bosses in this game spanning all 4 planets. There's the rotating pillar guys, where you'll need to shoot all the targets once they turn blue in order to expose and destroy its core, and there are the floating orb guys that kind of fly and roll around a lot, making it hard to hit its center eye. They did do their best to bring some variety to these bosses in the way of making some of the pillar guys move around the room as an added challenge to hit all the targets, or make the ball boss, roll around in a figure 8 pattern, which can be completely avoided by waiting in a corner, but I just don't really like these fights all that much. Honestly, it was more of a test of endurance on my trigger finger than it was an actual difficult fight. Even the final boss was pretty simple, but at least it was a breath of fresh air from the other bosses in the rest of the game. Here, you just need to shoot his arms off by targeting the shoulders, and then fire the weapon that coincides with the color of the boss at his core while he's floating in the center. It takes a long time, but it is actually a pretty fun boss. While most of the boss fights weren't great though, there are a decent few fights here that were. If you want a fun fight, you'd best look towards the regular planet maps themselves. See, this game features 6 other space bounty hunters to fight on your way through every planet. We've got Candon, Spire, Weevil, Noxus, Trace, and Sylux, of course. Each of these characters have different weapon types and alternate forms they can turn into, and honestly, it's a really nice break from the regular running around from room to room type of gameplay. They move around a lot, they each have their own gimmicks you have to deal with, and the rooms you'll typically find them in are often pretty good rooms to have a gunfight in. Plenty of cover, plenty of platforming, and plenty of fun. There are proper headshots in this game that do extra damage as well, which I think you're gonna want to learn to aim for in order to beat all these foes more efficiently. There is no Metroid Prime lock-on feature in this game, so it's all up to your stylus hand to actually make good shots here. As a little bonus for these fights, when you're looking at your radar to decide which planets you want to land on, your ship will tell you exactly which opponents you can expect to run into that are on that planet currently, to help inform your decision on which spot you'd like to visit next, and I just think this is plain cool. On each planet, you'll also eventually find one weapon that matches each of these bounty hunting opponents to expand your aggressive strategies. We've got lobbed explosives, electrical currents, bomb shots that don't just explode on contact, an electrical version of our regular blaster, a precision beam that can freeze opponents, and a sniper beam that can't be fired rapidly, but actually comes with its own scope-in mechanic unique to itself. These weapons are all mad fun to play with, and even though they all share an ammo reservoir, these upgrades to your special ammo storage can be found all over the game, allowing you to run and gun with whatever weapon you like the most to your heart's content. I think the combat, the controls, and the weapon options are easily the shining stars of this game over the story and the worlds themselves, and I'd say that's a pretty popular opinion. See, most of the people that played Prime Hunters back in the day, well, let's just say there was a special part of the game that made them actually stick to it more than this story mode. Ladies and gentlemen, this game came with a proper online versus mode that granted you access to play as any of the bounty hunters that could be found in the single player mode, and man was it actually so fun to play. I only ever played it locally with my brother and a few friends, but we all played on one game card, so the rest of us that didn't own the game had to play as Samus. But that got me thinking, why not bring somebody that was heavily invested in the online scene of this game during its heyday into the video to talk about it for me?
Hey, thanks to Myloe for inviting me on. I'm a big Metroid guy over on Twitch, and growing here on YouTube, I've done some Metroid panels at PAX East, I've done a bunch of other Metroid projects. You might have seen my Metroid timeline graphic floating around the internet at some point, or maybe even some of my competitive Smash clips where I am, unsurprisingly, a Samus main. But we're here for Hunters, one of the best PvP experiences I've ever had, and I'm still chasing to this day. It might have been lightning in a bottle when factoring in the hardware, the phase of the internet, and comparable games at the time. You'd think that for a DS game, PvP would be more of a cute side feature to the main story mode, sort of like Prime 2's PvP, but those who played back then would most likely agree that PvP was the true heart of the game. I purchased the game a little late as I didn't get it until the DS Lite released, but I beat the main game fairly quickly. I had my fun 100%ing the game as I did with most of the Metroid games that I had and most games I even really played at the time, but I found myself enjoying the PvP, and quite heavily. I eventually made an account on the official Nintendo forums, RIP, and had one of my first internet homes within the community there. It was a lively, thriving community with people discussing the meta, sharing friend codes to play in private lobbies, and the usual 2007 to 2009 internet humor and banter. I'm hazy on the exact memory, but one day a player named F5 Weegly, and yes, there were clans, who was the best sniper and imperialist player period, was looking to train new people on their techniques. And they ended up choosing me as a trainee for what was seen as strong potential that I had, as I was already quite good, frequently winning 1v1s as a Trace main. Wags trained me up real good and helped me level up immensely. Now, the F5, short for Fatal 5, were the best 5 players in the game, and eventually made the F5X to include another 20 players, or maybe it was 25, it's been a while, and I made the cut. We'd all play all the time and push each other to improve further, especially by playing different character matchups. I was a Trace main, but there was a fairly distinct tier list of characters. Psylux, ironically, was generally considered the best character, largely due to his ult form being able to deal a whopping 180 damage, which is wild because you can only have at most 200 health, but also his special ability being able to rapidly leech HP with the shock coil, which was incredibly powerful even if it was only a short range weapon. In fact, shock coil was kind of considered the worst weapon probably, unless you were Psylux, because then you were able to actually heal by using it. Trace was a close second best on the tier list between his affinity weapon being the Imperialist and having a strong ult form. His ult form had a very useful dash attack, which was great for chasing down opponents or repositioning quickly. When equipped with the Imperialist and being completely still, Trace could also become mostly invisible, which sounds great, but most high level players could work around this pretty easily, so you didn't want to stand still for very long. The rest of the hunters, including Samus, were in a similar competitive tier below these two, but Spire was generally considered the worst in the game due to having an enormous hurt box and, even worse, an enormous head hurt box in a game where headshots do double damage and can get you killed in one shot if it's the Imperialist. If you haven't picked up on it by now, the Imperialist was by far the best weapon because you could kill someone in one shot, so it was really important to get that weapon quickly in a high level match. Back to Spire, you'd still see a few good ones here and there. They could use the Magmaul pretty well. When you were Spire with the Magmaul, you had burn damage added on to the Magmaul's damage, so some were pretty good at that, but they were few and far between ultimately. In my Metroid Prime Hunters heyday, I was roughly top 20 in the game. You could check an actual leaderboard back then. Crazy for a Nintendo game, I know. And at the very top of the leaderboard, you would just see actually a bunch of people that hacked it. There would be people that had 999999999 for all of their stats, 999 wins, 999 everything, and clearly they never got that. It was like 10 bajillion kills or whatever. But if you scrolled past that, if you went to the 10th page or the 20th page or whatever it was, you could see the actual leaderboard in there, and that's where you could see that I was roughly top 20. I sent Myloe some photos of my in-game hunter license, and you can see, I wish I knew the exact time of that license, but you could see what my stats were towards the end of my hunter's career, and that's actually my second profile. I've remade it after playing, I don't know how many hours, I wish I knew, but at least 1,000 hours. I remade it because at the time I was a teenager and I felt really self-conscious about not having a perfect win rate. And so I was like, well, I guess I need to remake the profile and have a better win rate, which I did. I had an excellent win rate, but I sort of wish I had at least had photos of that first profile to see how many games I had, how many hours I had. You can also see a profile banner at the time, which was used on the Nintendo forums, which was really cool. You could see everyone's stats in real time. I don't remember who made it, but it's very impressive that everyone's stats could be pulled in real time. They were pulled from that leaderboard that I'm talking about. Worth pointing out here the most is the number of headshot kills to the number of kills that I have. You do the math on that. Just to be clear, the headshot number shown is the number of headshot kills that you have. I have been wanting, and honestly desperately wanting, PvP in a Metroid game again since Prime Hunters, and I've been sad to never get it. I'm hoping that Prime 4 could eventually get it, or hey, maybe it's in the game. It comes out in 24 hours from right now, so I would love to boot it up and be pleasantly surprised. And maybe we'll see it in a theoretical Metroid Prime 5 or 6 or equivalent. But until then, I shall reminisce on the glory days of Metroid Prime Hunters and see if we get any more of the Hunters featured in more future Metroid games. I'm really happy to see Psylux on the big screen, and admittedly, I would love even more to see Trace, because Trace is my boy. Thank you again to Myloe for having me. Thank you all for listening to this, and I'm throwing it back to Myloe.
Huge shout out to Doughboy for coming on and doing this project with me. It was a lot of fun to throw together, and he was a big help when it came to finding out just how crazy the Prime Hunters multiplayer actually got back in its day. Please go check him out on Twitch and YouTube. I think he's a great content creator, and especially around the release of Prime 4, you gotta believe he's gonna be doing some overtime. Links to his channels are down in the description, of course. And while you're down there, do feel free to like and subscribe and all that jazz. We worked really hard to get this video out, and it would be greatly appreciated. As I'm finishing this video up, we are mere hours away from Prime 4 releasing, and hopefully to everyone watching, you've already had some time to really sink your teeth in and enjoy it, as Doe and I will surely be doing as you're seeing this. Until my eventual video on Prime 4 itself comes around, that's my time. My name's Myloe, and I'm out.